Hi, welcome back to Team Woolly Sheep Reviews. So we're going to look at the X20S or X20. You've got your laptop, you've got your radio, you've got a receiver, and you've got a USB-C lead. So what you're going to do is get the firmware. You need the firmware. So the best place to get the firmware is, be careful, go straight to the manufacturer's webpage, and it should look something like this. So this is the FrSky -rc.com webpage, and you'll see that they got all the products. So I've gone to the Tandem X20S page because that's what I've got. And when you scroll down, you'll find there's lots of information about your transmitter, but there's a download section. So if you click on the download section, so the current OS firmware that's available is 1.017. Obviously this is going to change as time goes on. It's also got the Tandem module firmware, and the Tandem module firmware at the moment is 2.1.15. So, and that was released on January the 7th. Oh, that's quite a new one. So what I would suggest is you download these in readiness. So the two different firmwares is the module, is the transmitter module that's built into the radio, is not part of the radio firmware. So when you update the module, the transmitter module that's inside the transmitter, you tell it to update an internal device. So they exist as two different entities. The radio is like a computer, and then the transmitter module is a peripheral attached to the computer internally. So it's interesting, you need to know that just updating the radio firmware doesn't touch the transmitter module. And in that transmitter module is where all the LBT access, all that sort of protocol will be held. So what you need to do is create a folder. So I've got two folders, and I've just downloaded the radio firmware, so I'm going to paste that into there. See on the top end that there's connections, and we're going to plug in the data lead, and it's a USB-C. Now to enter into like the bootloader mode, you press and hold that button while you power up. And as you can see, it straight away goes into bootloader. So I'm then going to plug the USB into the computer, and you will see on my radio it say USB plugged. So what you'll see is two USB devices, one called no name, and there's nothing much in there except the bitmaps folder, and one called untitled. So this is the SD card basically. And in that SD card, I've created a folder called firmware. So for this exercise, I'm going to copy my radio firmware and TX firmware folders, and I'm going to paste them. So I got two folders in there now. One is for the 1017, that's the download for the radio firmware. And I'm going to use the EU version, and when I open that, you'll see there's a firmware bin file. So I'm going to simply copy that bin file, copy, and then I'm going to close all the folders, the links underneath, and I'm actually going to paste that paste item so it actually lives in the root. So I've copied in, and it's in the root, so it's in there. We can see all the folders, and you can see firmware bin. And this is the crucial bit. And I'm going to unplug. And when I unplug, you'll see something happen. Writing firmware on flash. My radio is now flashing itself. All I've done is unplug it. As you can see, it just takes a moment. So that went through quite quickly, and then it's a simple case of turning your radio off. And when I turn my radio on,
welcome to Ethos.
If I go into the settings and I go into info, I will see my firmware now is 1017 EU. You'll also see my tandem module is 1.40. So it's the EU or firmware 219. So the tandem module, the latest firmware is 2.1.15. 2.1.9. So this is 9 and it's now 15, so there's a newer version. So I want to update the internal module. I've just updated the radio settings. So it's a simple case of going into the radio settings, going into the file manager. I go into the folder called radio firmware because that's what I created. Now if you notice I'm using the touchscreen, I can also use the jog and shuttle and use it and click on it. And in there I will see two files that I created, two folders. One was the firmware for the radio and the other one was the TD referenced one, 2.1.15. So I can select that and then there's the file. So if I press and hold on that, oh sorry, it's not press and hold, if I just press it, I come up flash internal module. Press that, it's now updating the internal module and it is flashing it quite quickly, as you can see. Close, and that's it. So if I go back into the settings, if I go into to information, I can now see that my internal module is 2.1.15 and it's the EU LBT. So as a recap, I've downloaded the firmware or the software for the operating system off the FrSky web page. I put it onto the memory card and it was saved on the memory card, so I got a backup of it. I copied the firmware file and put it in the root to the card memory. Put in the file straight on it, not in any folders, it's straight in the root. Just dropped on the in that folder on the card. So it's not in any subfolders. If it's in a subfolder, it will not work. And all I've done then is unplugged it out to the USB. As soon as it's disconnected, it's referring to the firmware file and flashes the radio. It's then updated the operating system of the radio, as simple as that. It's all done. And so I restart the radio and everything's fine. Then what I've done is I've gone into the file manager. I found the tandem firmware and I've told it to flash internal device, and then it's updated the tandem module. So I selected the EU LBT version and put it in ready, and so that was copied on. So yeah, it was good to go, and it's as simple as that. So we're not talking difficulties, but this is a new radio. They are developing and improving all the time, so there's going to come a time where you're going to need to update the firmware, and it's as simple as that. We're not talking anything overly complex. So I hope you found that helpful. So in these series of videos now, we've covered flashing receivers, and you can do all your receivers that way. So I'm plugging them in, and off the radio is so easy. Never mind using software or laptops. Once you've put it onto the memory card, create a folder for all your receivers and drop them all in there. Then if the names of the firmware files will be clear, you know, you won't mistake any of the firmware files, because they're named such that you'll recognize them. The RX6R, for example, you know, you'll see the firmware file RX6R. So create a folder on your laptop, copy that folder onto the memory card, and then you know where they are. Go to the file manager. Like I said, they made it, if you can use a PC, this is, you know, you'll be familiar with files and folders. And then this simple flash external device, and then it comes out to the smart port on the back. So nice and easy. Like I said, once you've done it once or twice, you'll realize that it's not a problem, it's not difficult, and it's quite straightforward. If it's not broken and everything works, then leave it alone, you know. But there are lots of little tweaks and fixes. Even my electric shaver has got firmware updates. The television has got firmware updates. Hells bells, if you buy the TS1000 soldering irons, you got a firmware update for a soldering iron. I haven't got a firmware update for my wife yet, but I'm sure there's updates available. But I hope she's not watching this, I think she's gonna kill me. But anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed that. I'm not gonna be, you know, constantly covering the X20S. That's it now. So if anybody's got any special requests or something they did want to know, I'll happily communicate with them in the messages below. Or if they want a video cover explaining how to do something, I'm happy to do that, so just let me know. Like I said, I don't work for FrSky, I don't get anything, there's no freebies coming this way. So if you've got any freebies, I'm happy to receive them. But everything I do is I'm learning, so I'm passing the knowledge on to save you a lot of time and messing around. If I've had to learn it, I might as well help you along. So thank you for watching Team Woolly Sheep Reviews, and 2022 is going to be an amazing year, and I'm feeling really happy about that, and we're going to get out there and do some serious flying. So thank you again, keep tuned, subscribe, and see you soon. Bye.